Boys, what's good? It's Herm. We're here today to talk about the Charlotte Hornets because I think the Hornets are going to be much better than people think. It seems like a lot of people think they're going to be a bottom dweller just like they were last season, and I don't see that happening. I think they're going to be a competitive team. They're going to be a at least play-in team, and I think they're going to be pretty good. I actually like a lot of what the Hornets have done through the draft the last couple years, as well as just continued growth from guys that they already have. So we're going to talk about them today. We're going to talk about what happened with them last season, why it's going to be better this upcoming season, then some other stuff, with all the individual guys and what to expect for next season. So we're going to do a lot of Hornets talk. We're going to go all the way into it. But before we do, think about subscribing. It's free, it's easy, and if you don't like the content, as unsubscribe later. That's fine. That's up to you. But let's just get into it, starting off with what happened last season with the Hornets. So last season, the Hornets finished 27-55. Not good. I think that's fair enough to say. 14th place in the Eastern Conference, so second to last. No All-Stars for Charlotte. Had 3 20-point per game scores, though, which was interesting because not many teams did, but the Hornets, who weren't very good, did have 3 20-point per game scores in LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, and Kelly Oubre, who's an unrestricted free agent. They landed the number 2 overall pick in this year's NBA draft and took Brandon Miller, who we'll talk about in detail. But the team shot just 33% from 3 last season, towards the bottom of the league in that they just weren't good from downtown. And in today's NBA, you have to be good at it. So they made some things that can help improve that, and we'll talk about that too. But Miles Bridges missed all of last season. I think that's one of the biggest storylines for Charlotte. If you want to talk about Charlotte's 2023 season, you have to talk about Bridges missing the whole year. Because if we're being honest, Miles Bridges is the Hornets' second best player. When your second best player misses the entire season, you're going to be a lot worse. You just are. And LaMelo Ball missed a very large chunk of the season as well. But now let's talk about why you can be optimistic for why this season will be better. So they made the play-in tournament in both of the 2 years prior to last year, in 2021 and 2022. They didn't make the playoffs, but they did make the play-in tournament, so they were at least somewhat competitive in the Eastern Conference. Miles Bridges averaged 20 points per game and 7 rebounds in 2022, and after missing all of last year, will return this upcoming season after a short suspension. LaMelo only played 36 games last year and was an all-star in 2022. I'd say he was on pace to be an all-star last year as well, but the Hornets probably realistically, just record-wise, he probably wouldn't have got in, but he was playing at an all-star level last year too. Brandon Miller is a sharpshooter at 6'9", just a big dude, and projects as an all-star two-way guy who's great offensively and is going to continue to get better on the defensive end. Mark Williams was phenomenal defensively down the stretch last season. I don't think that gets talked about enough. As a great future center for them. The team had a nice winning stretch in the latter half of last season, powered by guys like Dennis Smith Jr., PJ Washington, even Kelly Oubre was fun to watch. And Gordon Hayward played 50 games last year, so that's a Hornets high for him and could be becoming more healthy, going in the right direction. And on top of getting Brandon Miller at number 2, they also got Nick Smith Jr. at 27 and James Nnaji at pick 31, and they're both high upside picks who could turn out to be much better players than their draft position would tell you. But let's talk about the guys. Let's talk about some individual players for the Hornets. I believe it's 8 guys I'm going to talk about individually, and these are the Hornets pieces who can help make them sneaky good next season. Starting off with LaMelo Ball. I think he's the obvious guy. He is the leader of this team. He is the Hornets' best player. When you think of Charlotte, you think of LaMelo. He's the franchise guy, and they just backed it up by giving him a 5-year, $260 million extension. Massive money for LaMelo Ball coming off of his rookie deal, and they're committed to him. They're committed to him for the long term, to be their point guard going forward, to be their franchise player going forward. And he's a good player. He just is 21 years old, is a star already, super likable guy, viral guy because of his passing, because of his shooting, and because of the family he comes from. But was very productive last season. I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough because the Hornets weren't very good, but LaMelo Ball quietly had his best season last year before injury. 38% from 3, spaces the floor very well, whether it's off the dribble or off the catch. He's a pretty good three-point shooter, so that allows him to play off ball a little bit. But since they didn't go scoot, he won't have to play off ball. He's going to be the main guy on the ball pretty much all the time. But 23 points per game last year, 8.5 assists, and 6.5 rebounds. I know the points is a career high. I don't know about the other two, but he was good. He was efficient, not necessarily efficiently, but efficiently from three anyway. Putting the ball in the basket, getting past people, making highlight plays just like he always does. And he was an all-star in 2022, but didn't play enough games last year realistically as well. He makes his teammates better, which is a big reason why the Hornets can overachieve, because he helps to raise the level of everyone else. Not the level of like someone like Jokic, who really makes his teammates better, but LaMelo Ball does make his teammates better players, and I don't think that's even arguable. He's continually improved each year in the league and is going to continue to do that, and I think he'll look better with a better surrounding cast, with guys getting better shots, more open looks because of the more talent they have now. So LaMelo Ball, I think, is going to continue to look better with more guys around him. The biggest question with LaMelo, though, is can he stay healthy, because it's been a common recurrence early in his career, and his brother Lonzo is seemingly maybe done in the NBA after only a few seasons because of wearing the Triple B Big Baller brand shoes is the most hinted at reason for why his injuries are coming out. And LaMelo Ball, another wearer of those shoes because they were put out by his father. So LaMelo could have some lingering stuff from that as well, but it seems like most of LaMelo's injuries are more freak injuries than kind of long-lasting stuff. But second, let's talk about Brandon Miller, because he was the second overall pick in this year's NBA draft. In most NBA drafts, he would go number one. It's just kind of rare you see a guy at 6'9" who can just do everything on the floor. Like, these guys don't grow on trees. You don't see guys like Brandon Miller very often with his skill set. 200 pounds isn't super big, but he's not a beanpole either. 20 years old, 19 points per game at Alabama as a freshman, 8 rebounds and 2 assists. I believe he was an All-American, and he put up almost 40. I think it was either 39 or 37, but a massive game coming off of a lot of controversy, so he clearly is able to block out the noise and just go out and ball, and he did that in his freshman season at Alabama, being one of the best players in the country as a freshman. 38% from three as well, also would be above NBA average, so him and LaMelo should be a pretty good shooting backcourt if that's your long-term backcourt. Projects as a very good defender on top of all the offensive stuff he offers with his own shot creation, with his ability to score off the catch and shoot or create his own shot at all three levels, really. But is good defensively as well and is going to get better at it. I think he's going to be a pretty good defender from day one, which the Hornets need. They're not an elite defensive team, but he's going to help improve them in that area. And he's just a very complete player. It feels like he does just about everything at a very high level, which is kind of Paul George-esque. Paul George, has had a lot of injuries lately, so people kind of forget, but when healthy, Paul George is arguably the most complete player in the NBA. He just does everything well. And that's what Brandon Miller is going to give you. And he can play the two-guard spot. I think is a big talking point for the Hornets going forward, is that you can play Brandon Miller at the two and allow Charlotte to go really big. Because all of a sudden you have LaMelo, who's like 6'6", 6'7", at the point guard spot, and Brandon Miller at 6'9" at the two, and you have a ginormous backcourt and can go big around them. And if the NBA starts to take a shift towards more athletic big guys, which I think we're kind of seeing, then the Hornets have a good jump start on it with these two guys in the backcourt. But the biggest question to me with B-Mills here is how good will he be in year one? Is he going to be a immediate 15 point per game guy? Is he going to be a 12 point per game guy? Is the efficiency going to be good in year one? I think the shooting will be good because he'll get good shots from LaMelo, but what the points per game is with some of the other guys they already have is going to be interesting to watch. But he should be in the Rookie of the Year race in year one because he has that level of talent. Third, though, let's talk about Miles Bridges. Arguably, or probably is their second best player right now. I don't think he's their second most important player going forward. I think that's Miller. But Bridges is huge for them. Missed all of the 2023 season due to a domestic violence case. So a lot of off-court issues for Miles Bridges. He did plead guilty to that as well. But his wife and him are reportedly amicable. And she has told people that they should, kind of forgive him and try to let him live his normal life. And a lot of NBA players are hanging out with him as well, so I don't think that's going to be some big concern chemistry-wise with the team or anything like that. He'll serve a short suspension to start next season. I believe it's somewhere in the 5 to 10 games range, but we'll be back pretty early. In his last season on the floor in 2022, averaged 20 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. He's a ridiculous athlete, one of the best athletes in the league, and dunker. I think he probably is the best in-game dunker in the league. Him and LaMelo have great chemistry on that. He's going to throw him lobs all the time, and Bridges is going to throw him down. He's a walking highlight reel. Like I said, he's getting those highlight dunks all the time, as well as kind of, I don't know if I'd say abusing, but really handling people one-on-one in isolation situations. Kind of a Carmelo Anthony-esque offensive game. It's not that level, but it's the same type of play style. At least young Melo, I think, is pretty similar. And he's in a contract year, so that's going to make him try to play better so he can get some of that money back that he ended up leaving on the table last summer. But he's on a $7 million qualifying offer, and he wants that money back, so he's going to play hard for it. And the team was undoubtedly better when he was on it. Whether you like him or not, I think that's up to you. I'm not going to, go into a deep discussion on my opinion of Miles Bridges off court and who he is as a person. But Miles Bridges makes the Hornets better. He just does. When he's on the floor for the Hornets, they're a lot better team. They were a play-in team each of the last 2 years, and he was on the floor for them, and they have added Brandon Miller and Mark Williams since then. I think the impact is going to be clear from day one, and he was getting much better every season he was in the league, and feels like a guy who could be a 25 point per game guy at some point. He wants his respect back, and I think we're going to see that next season. Fourth, let's talk about Terry Rozier, one of their 20 point per game scorers from last season. I'd say he's one of the most underrated guards in the league, and he seemingly goes somewhat unnoticed because he plays in Charlotte, but this dude has been getting buckets. Even though he left Boston, he was called Scary Terry there, he went to Charlotte and continued getting buckets and doing the same sort of thing as the starting backcourt mate for LaMelo Ball. And I think he actually fits with LaMelo pretty well, despite Terry playing point guard mostly beforehand. The two of them, I think, gel pretty well together in the backcourt. 21 points per game last year, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and over a steal per game. Is not a bad defender on top of all the stuff he does offensively. He's a good starter, but would be an elite 6th man if it comes to that. If they decide to start Brandon Miller at the 2 and bring Terry off the bench, he would, I think, immediately become the best 6th man in the league. It would be him or Brogdon pretty much. But Terry Rozier is a very good scoring guard and really kind of fits actually that scoring guard bench type. But if they continue to start him, he's a good starter as well. He's proven to be a clutch player in Boston in the playoffs, and if he's like your 4th best player, which I think he probably is going to be pretty quickly with depending on how good Brandon Miller gets quickly here, but then you're going to be a pretty good team because he is not an all-star player, but he's like that step right below that. So if he's your 4th guy, I just think you're a good team, and he's a natural bucket getter. But my biggest question with him is, will the efficiency improve with getting more open looks? I think bringing Miller in draws some attention away from Rozier as well as Bridges compared to last season. So there's going to be more open looks for Terry, and how does he adjust to that, and does his efficiency go up, because it's been somewhat of a problem to this point. Next, let's talk about Mark Williams, a guy who I really like. I think he's their center of the future. 7'2" with a 7'7" wingspan and a 9'9" standing reach. Is just a physical specimen you don't see very often. Is very rare in his length and his defensive ability as well. He's only 21 years old. He's still pretty young. 9 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 1 block per game last year. Didn't make all rookie, but like I say with some other guys, if there was an all-rookie 3rd team, he would have been on it, because maybe if he wasn't a top 10 rookie, he was a top 15 when he was still very good. 64% from the field, very solid. And in April, the last month of the year, despite it being a pretty small sample size, I believe it was only like 3 games, but 16 points per game, 12 rebounds, and a block. And if he can do anything like that consistently, he'll make the Hornets dangerous. He's an elite defender and rim protector right now, and is going to get better at it. And I think he's very underrated. I think a lot of people talk about him like he's a stopgap until they get a star at the center spot, but I think he is their center of the future. If I'm them, I build around Mark Williams at my center spot as a great rim protector, a very good defensive presence. The defensive rating is phenomenal when he's on the floor with them. After the trade deadline, for a while, they were like the best defensive team in the league because of Mark Williams and his play time going up. He's such an impact guy at the 5 spot defensively, and isn't bad offensively either, despite his bag being kind of limited. Next, I want to talk about PJ Washington, who's a restricted free agent. He might not necessarily be on the Hornets, but I think the Hornets would be smart to bring him back because I really like what I saw from him last year. I think he's likely to come back too. I don't think there's going to be some team this late into free agency that's going to offer him some huge bag, but he's still just 24 years old. He has improved in every season he's been in the league. 16 points per game last year, 5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, as well as being a career 37% from 3. He's an improving scorer, has got better at it consistently, and he stretches the floor. He's a stretch 4 as a spacer, and is a great athlete as well, so he's another guy who can be catching lobs from LaMelo, but the big question with him is, can he fit with Bridges and Miller? So can the 3 forwards there fit together, or is PJ Washington kind of the odd man out? I think he might be, but if they're going to trade him, they should get decent stuff back because, like I said, I think PJ Washington is a very good player and is pretty underrated. Next, I want to talk about Gordon Hayward. Not because he's a star or anything, I don't think that's going to happen, but he's a solid veteran presence, and I think he makes them better as a team when he's on the floor. 33 years old at this point, he's kind of coming into the cresting days of his career. One-time All-Star, 15 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists last season. In 50 games played, is a career 37% from 3, so can space the floor as well. He's not really more than just a nice role player at this point. I don't think he's going to get back to stardom, but is a solid backup forward who can help develop the young guys. And the last guy I want to talk about for them individually is Nick Smith Jr., a shooting guard out of Arkansas, picked 27th overall in 2023. I think was one of the best value picks of this year's NBA draft because he was the 3rd overall recruit in 2022 coming out of high school. Dealt with some injuries and stuff at Arkansas that kind of held back his draft stock, but could really overachieve what we saw him taking there. Is a super high upside guy, as a scorer, was kind of viewed as like a Jamal Murray, Tyler Hero type, as a scoring guard, a shooting guard. But to me, natural score, very good handle, can kind of cross people up a little bit, is kind of shifty in the way that he plays. 12.5 points per game in 17 games last season at Arkansas, where he had the injury troubles, but he will be a steal at pick number 27 if he plays like we saw in high school. But the biggest question is going to be if he can put the injuries behind him. But with an NBA medical staff, I'm hoping he can do that. If we talk about the projected lineup next, as we move past the individual guys, I think you're probably looking at a starting 5 of LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Mark Williams, which I think is a really solid starting 5. I don't think it has any like clear weaknesses that there's a problem with. Maybe, you talk about the spacing still, but Brandon Miller, good shooter, LaMelo Ball, good shooter, Terry Rozier kind of goes up and down, he gets kind of hot for stretches, but you have guys that can play some defense like Miller and Williams, and you have guys that can kind of fill up the scoreboard in LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, and Miles Bridges. So I think they have a lot of impact stuff offensively and defensively in the starting lineup and are pretty young and can grow together. Off the bench, I think you're looking at Amari Bailey, Nick Smith Jr., Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, and Nick Richards as your second unit, and then Teo Maledon, James Bouknight, who maybe he'll still turn into something, was a lottery pick kind of recently that hasn't turned out. Bryce McGowens, Kai Jones, and James Nnaji as your 3rd string unit. But let's just talk about what to expect from the Hornets next season. On the low end, I think they're a bottom 3 team in the East and back in the high lottery. I think the only way something like that really happens that drastically is if they have a lot of injuries. If LaMelo Ball misses like 50 games again, if Gordon Hayward only plays like 30 games, if Miles Bridges can't quite get back to what we saw before, and if Brandon Miller has like a kind of down rookie year, then maybe they finish like this, but I'm pretty confident they're going to be better than that. On the high end, I think they're finishing somewhere from 7th to 10th in the East, and try to make the playoffs through the play-in games, and I think they will have the ability to do that. They won't necessarily be favored, most likely because the East is pretty good. It's not as good as the West, but the East is alright still. There are some teams that they'd be vying with in the same range as like the Bulls and the Raptors and stuff like that, the Pacers as well. But the Hornets will try to get in there, and they'll try to get in, and I think they'll at least have a chance. The Hornets won't be elite next season. They're not going to be a contender for a title or anything like that, but it seems like most assume they'll be bottom feeders, which I just don't think they'll be. This team with Bridges has been a play-in team and likely will continue to be one, especially with the addition of Miller and Williams since he last played. That's 2 starters. Expect LaMelo to make the All-Star game if healthy, and Bridges to be a fringe All-Star guy again on a contract year. Brandon Miller should finish top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting, but there are 3 other guys who'll be right in there with Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, and Chet Holmgren, so it'll be a tight race, but Miller should be right up there. Injuries will continue to rear their ugly head, with LaMelo and Gordon Hayward probably missing some time, but hopefully that's as least as it can possibly be. And with arguably the most fun commentator in the league, a great passer, and many phenomenal athletes, the team will be a highlight reel every night and very fun to watch, regardless of wins. So the Hornets are going to be a fun team, but I think they're going to be better than people think. Because of Bridges coming back, because of Brandon Miller coming in, and jumps from guys like LaMelo and Mark Williams. But let me know your thoughts on the Hornets. Let me know what you think they'll be, and what to expect from them next season, because I think they're really going to be a lot better than people think. I know it's kind of controversial. A lot of people don't love the Hornets' future, but I actually don't think it's that bad, and I think they're going to be better than a lot of people, or like what the consensus would be. I think they're slept on. But let me know your thoughts. Think about subscribing. I'm on the road to 9,000 subs, but hopefully you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking. But that's going to be it for me today. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.